Oh, Kaczynski's in the house. You there, Ted? In your shed in Montana? Come in, Ted. We have a course, Ted, on your book at the Unregistered Academy on the Unabomber Manifesto, and so I'm glad. Thank you for coming on the show today, Ted. I thought there was a report that you died, but I guess that's not true. So thanks for appearing on this humble live stream. You want to talk about the Unabomber Manifesto for a minute, on why people should take the course?
I think it's already way too mainstream now. I think when we did that course 2 or 3 years ago, we did it in 20.
Right,
Yeah, it was like
2
cutting edge.
years.
Yeah.
2 years. Right, it was actually the beginning of the academy, right?
Mhm. And
Yeah,
then
right. That's so funny. Well, now that you're in your golden age, golden dawn, what was it?
golden age, the golden
Golden
age of America has
precipitation.
begun. Yeah.
Okay. Um, golden rainstorms, something around
Mhm.
the. I mean, right. Everything's allowed now that wasn't 2 years ago. I've noticed, you know, lots of N-word throwing around by white people in recent weeks. Have you not noticed that? I've
Uh,
noticed a lot of like looseness with words, politically incorrect words recently, because which I welcome. I mean, I'm all about that.
yeah.
But like you're right, Ted Kaczynski, the idea of the Unabomber, or like Bronze Age pervert, or Curtis Yarvin. These people are now becoming. Curtis Yarvin was just in the New York Times. Bronze Age pervert has been read by probably half or more of the Trump administration. I would bet. I bet you a giant chunk of his cabinet is at least aware of Bronze Age
Yeah,
mindset
there
and pervert.
there was there was rumors that it was circulating during the first administration amongst high-level staffers, and
A
then
lot.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I know. I kind of know some of those people, and like I'm around some of those people that sort of the edges of the Trump administration world, and yeah, they're totally into alt right stuff. That's really who they are. So, but I want to talk about. We have a lot to do, but I want to talk about the politics of this show, I guess,
Okay.
and its interesting bedfellows.
Mhm.
So the COVID thing was a coalition, and it was the weirdest political coalition I've ever been a part of or ever even known about, which was the COVID, the anti whatever you want to call it, anti lockdown, anti vaccine coalition during COVID, which brought together libertarians and a handful of some communists and then all these sort of health people who I didn't even know existed as a whole subculture, right? Who had all sorts of different weird politics, and I knew it was doomed. There's no way it could hold together, and it did. It broke apart over various issues, as we talked about on the show. Well, the uh, the Palestine coalition was similar in that it's been a coalition of communists and a handful of libertarians and me, um, whatever I am. But uh, yeah, and so, well, I'm certainly not a communist, and I'm actually an anti-communist, as everyone should know by now. But yeah, I've been noticing that coalition has started to break apart too over those across those lines. That the Marxists are starting to notice our show is not correct about many issues, Michael, and so they're starting to take notice of us and say things. But they also have said that it's a great show and should be watched. I mean that, like after critiquing our bad politics. So that's really encouraging. But I mean it's sad. I mean I said this on Twitter like a year ago. I think that perhaps the greatest tragedy of the Palestinian people is that their primary ally is the American left. You could add the British, Irish left to that, but the Anglosphere left, but especially in America. And I mean, you and I have talked, and endlessly about the left on the show, so we don't need to go into all the reasons why it's bad to be allied to the left in America in recent years, and meaning like the last 70 years. It's hard to find anything that the left, much of what the left has done in the last 70 years, that you can hang your hat on. Don't say you ended the Vietnam War, because you didn't. That ended in 1973, or really 75, long after there had been marches in the streets. I'm not saying the anti-war movement was bad, but it did not end the war. And, other than that, there ain't much. And there's, of course, the wholehearted support of the Soviet Union during that time. Anyway, but
I don't have it on me.
Anyway, what's that?
I have a little trinket that I have on my keychain. It was a wonderful gift. It's a pocket watch from the Soviet Union, and it looks like it should be silver, but it's made out of aluminum. And when you have to dial it up to make it work, and it's really beautiful. It's a wonderful little piece, but when you dial it up to get it to work, the hand doesn't, like the second hand works, but the hand is like slow. So like 2 hours will go by in 45 minutes or something.
The workers don't need a watch. Okay. Yeah. When the commissar on the factory floor will tell you when to start work. Okay. Don't worry. Yeah. He'll make sure you're going to work. Yeah.
But yeah, just a reminder that I have on my person to remember that communism never works and always ends in starvation and genocide.
Well, I was there. I was in the Soviet Union in 1987 and spent 2 weeks there in 3 different cities: Moscow, Leningrad, and Tbilisi in Georgia. And got the full tour, state tour, and some totally private black market tours too, by regular Soviet kids, like rock musicians who had like illegal squats where they would play American rock and roll illegally and often get busted and go to prison for it. But yeah, and the number one department store at the time in the Soviet Union of all time was called GUM, G-U-M, and its flagship store was right on Red Square, and it was like their attempt. It was like the biggest tourist destination there was in the Soviet Union, other than the old imperial architecture. And we went in, and you walk in, and it's sort of like this large atrium kind of lobby foyer, like in a big fancy department store, but not fancy. It was just big. And in the middle of that was a round table, for the display. There's always a display in stores. And there was one table in the middle of this big room, and it had a pyramid about 4 feet high of tuna fish cans. That was their big display. This was the number one department store in all of the Soviet Union. Tuna was on display in cans. It was, yeah. I mean, it's yeah. We can go on and on about the the atrocities of communism, both really existing, and I know people are pissed off as I'm speaking right now, which is good. Really existing communism, the stuff that actually was called communism, that actually happened in various countries, and theoretically, which is what I actually go after. Most anti-communists spend all their time yelling about the Soviet Union. I want to talk about I want to talk about the damn theory, and you're gonna have to make me work, and I will refuse to work. And what will you do? I've asked this, I've put a gun to my head, or throw me in a camp, or something, or drug me, or I don't know, get me a lobotomy, which they also did, electroshock and lobotomy, to convince people that they really should work for the collective. And I've asked this of very well-known Marxists and communists publicly, and they've had no answer, because there is no answer except, yeah, man, you will have to be forced to work, because everyone has to be forced to work. Otherwise, the thing doesn't work. You have to produce things. And if it's going to be democratically run, that means if the people, whoever happen to be, running the place, even if it is the people, if they decide that we need more tuna fish and goom, they got to make someone work to get the tuna fish and put it in cans and put it in the store and sell it. And that's just one little fraction of the economy. Of course you have to make it. Of course it requires slavery. State slavery. It gets denigrated by Trotskyists and sort of anti-Stalinists. State socialism, which isn't real socialism. That's their whole critique of the Soviet Union. No, it's state slavery, principally, because of course nothing works if no one works. Nothing in any system works. So people have to work to produce things for things. And if it's collective and democratically governed, then they can come and tell you to work. And if you don't, but they have to tell you to work, because especially in the Soviet Union, which was 80% peasant at the time of the Russian Revolution, they had a lot of stuff to make, and they were only in existence for 70 years. So they had to produce a lot of stuff, and all the commissars said this, Stalin said this, Khrushchev said this. It was all about industrialization, producing fast, so that we will survive as a modern industrial nation against our competitors in the West, and particularly the United States. So they forced people into factories and into collective farms for decades and forced them to work. And if they refused to work or didn't work well or lazy, well, we know. They weren't always shot. They usually weren't shot. That's what the gulags were for. The prisons. We know this. I mean, it's not. But again, it's not because the Soviet communists were especially mean people, and therefore they had a really mean version of communism. I'm saying that theoretically, it's required. You're going to be compelled labor. There has to be. And they'll say, oh, well, in capitalism, it's compelled too. Well, no, actually not in that way. It's compelled in that you have to survive, but that's according to the state of nature. You have to work to survive, no matter what system you're in, to have food, shelter, all the rest of it. But the state, under capitalism, at least, in our capitalism, which is not perfect, but no, the state has never come to me with a gun, with a cop telling me to work. They come with a gun in hand telling me to pay taxes, but that's the state. It's not capitalism. And so anyway, they get mad about that and other things, but it's cool. I mean, I saw a wonderful actually exchange between Dave Smith and Aaron Mate on and Katie Halper.
Were they on Piers Morgan together?
That too, but when Dave was on their show,
okay,
they had a really nice, I mean, they talked about Palestine and Israel, but they got into it about socialism versus libertarianism, and about welfare. Why should we have welfare or not? And it was I just love the mutual curiosity and respect that they dealt with it with. So anyway, there's some good stuff. And then also, the Trump administration, here we go, segue into the news. Trump himself and the Trump administration, I mean, the people in it are that in many ways. They are this really interesting hybrid of political ideologies and movements and forces.
Well,
I mean, it's a brand new thing, man. I mean, it is, whether or not it's golden, I don't know, but it is definitely new and really interesting, and already has been really productive. And a lot of good things have happened from a left or libertarian perspective. Yeah.
You were talking about the two coalitions, the anti-COVID coalition, the anti-lockdown coalition, and the Palestine coalition. They both have victories in the Trump administration. You've got RFK Jr. as HHS secretary, which is incredibly radical. It's the guy who wrote The Real Anthony Fauci is going to be in charge of all those agencies now.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
it is amazing.
And then you've got Steve Witkoff bringing peace to the Middle East. You've at least got somebody holding Israel accountable directly for the first time ever.
Yeah.
So
and Ukraine, and he ended assistance to Ukraine. He just effectively ended the Ukraine war too. Which, for not liberals, that's not a good thing, but for leftists, most serious Marxists, leftists, they were on our side on Ukraine, and so it's very good. And then, by the way, the immigration stuff, which I don't like, that's an old left-wing cause. I mean, it was the original left-wing cause. It was led by labor unions, in particular Cesar Chavez and the United Farm Workers in California and Arizona in the 1960s. He basically forced the federal government to invent the Border Patrol. And the UFW organizers were the first, they policed the border with guns and caught illegal aliens crossing over to work in the fields and turned them into the police. That was Cesar Chavez, everybody. Every city we're living in has a Cesar Chavez Boulevard. I just saw there was a huge mural in San Francisco. I saw the other night of him, like a massive mural of him downtown San Francisco. And I just thought, my God, he was racist. He invented the term wetback, or used it. He used the term wetback. He did invent a term though. Wait, I forget it. Really nasty one, but he called them illegals. I think he invented that. I think he was the first public figure to call those people illegals in that way. But I mean, he was militant. I mean, he was like the original Minutemen or whatever they're called, the guys who used to police the border. Yeah, the UFW, Cesar Chavez, that great hero of the left. He demanded strict border control, border enforcement, because of the competition with his members in the fields in the agricultural sector in the West. So yeah, Trump has been very left wing in a lot of ways. He's had a lot of, what else? I mean, well, he released Ross Ulbricht, who, you know, it's not exactly a left wing cause, but I think there are lefties who would agree with that. Maybe. I mean, like serious lefties, maybe. Maybe not.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. That label, I mean, I think if anything, we shouldn't be catering to the left at all, like on anything ever, period. Period.
Who's we?
Like anybody.
You and me?
any serious person ever. Like, yeah.
I see. Right. Okay. Any serious person. Yeah, yes, I mean, that's where I was until Palestine.
Yeah.
I mean, and when that happened, I was like, it was just really hard not to be a little, I mean, one thing I have noticed or found, I have found a few people on the left who are, of course, good on Palestine, who I actually think are cool.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I knew the Gray Zone have preceded this, you know, and they're great. I mean, I agree with, I have never seen a problem with the journalism at the Gray Zone at all. To this day, I mean, they have all sorts of critics all over the place, and to this day, I've not heard of anybody say, "Oh, they were wrong about this, or they got this fact wrong, or they misreported this." Not one. I'm like, okay, they're just pro-Putin allegedly, or pro-Maduro, or whatever. But I've never once had anyone point out like they were wrong about this thing they said about anything with actual facts. But anyway, I mean, there are others. I mean, there are actually good people, sort of in the broad anti-war movement, who have been coming together, you know, left and libertarians for years already, and so they were already ready to come together over Palestine, like with Dave Smith and Aaron Mate. Anyway, so but more interesting and important is the Trump administration and the politics of the people in it, which I think is really fascinating. I'm just getting a sense of it. I mean, I think we all are. But talk about a coalition. Yeah, RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, Kash Patel. I don't know if people are aware of it. He was featured. He's the hero in Amanda Milius's movie. I think it's an excellent documentary. Amanda was on Unregistered a couple years ago. A friend of mine. She was actually in the State Department making movies for Trump, for the administration. But anyway, she featured. It's on the Russiagate hoax. And Kash Patel is the hero in the movie. He's the main. He ends up being a central character on the right side, from my point of view, in the whole Russiagate conspiracy hoax. And he is now, and basically he called for the abolition almost of the FBI, practically, and the CIA. And now he's the head of the FBI, or he's about to be, at least if he gets confirmed. I mean, it's wild. It is, and so the ideological crosscurrents that has never existed anywhere in American politics. Really, forget the presidency, but it has never been such a diverse mix of ideological commitments in anywhere in American politics. I mean, yeah, you see straight libertarians in the Trump administration and around it, certainly
Also
informing
gay
a lot of policy.
libertarians.
Gay libertarians, who?
Yeah.
Grinnell?
Well,
Who?
yeah.
Anyway,
real
so
quick, the film is called Plot Against the President. The chat's asking the plot against the president.
right. And then you've got people who discovered politics about 5 years ago, who are, at the top of the administration too, like Elon Musk. Which, by the way, that's his problem. I mean, that's fun to me. That's fundamentally his problem, and the problem with a lot of the anti-woke people. Speaking of yet another coalition that fell apart, that was probably the first coalition of this sort, the anti-woke, which I was very much a part of, as of about 10 years ago, centering around the Rogan podcast. But I noticed, and what really bothered me about the sort of heads, the major figures in that coalition, like the Sam Harris's, perfect example, the Weinstein brothers, Joe Rogan himself. Although I'd say, in a lot of ways, Joe has educated himself much more effectively than those guys have since then. They're political, what is it, naifs? I mean, they're new to it, neophytes and naifs, both. They're new to it, and they've admitted it. Like they didn't follow politics until, like, in Harris's case, it was 9/11, which explains much of what he's had to say since then. And in the others, it was the rise of wokeness in the 2010s. And that's when they became political, and that's what they became obsessed with, like what the kids on college campuses were doing, and the pink hair and the trans and all that stuff. And that's kind of, we can now see that's how they're limited, is the politics don't extend beyond that. And they have no real deep historical knowledge either about politics. And they don't have I'd say a deeper understanding, therefore, of politics and the institutions and movements and ideologies and the big theoretical debates around various issues. They're new to it. They often come out of STEM, out of science, technology, engineering, or math, something like that. Again, Sam Harris. Again, the Weinsteins. So they don't have backgrounds in the humanities. They didn't take history classes. They didn't take philosophy classes. They didn't take anthropology classes. They didn't take English classes. They don't read novels. They so abstract thought, taking ideology and ideas seriously instead of just sort of the binary material conditions that everybody can measure. Right. These are their problems. So Elon Musk he's even more naive than them, because he came along even much later. He came to the anti-woke movement, 2 years ago or something, 3 years ago, probably during COVID. He's probably part of the COVID coalition, right? Isn't that what politicized him?
There's a number of things. Actually. It was free speech.
His trans son.
Yeah, his trans son. But I think it was the Biden administration going after him personally. I think he was ambivalent in 2020 as to who would be as to who would be president. He was willing to work with either one, and then Biden saw Musk as too powerful and went after him with a series of lawsuits that were DEI based. Also, they were accusing SpaceX and Tesla of not hiring enough immigrants, and then I forget the whole process, but it was like, I can't hire immigrants because there are state secrets involved with my contract work. And here you are investigating me for not hiring enough foreigners. But if I did, you'd think they were spies. And so that antagonistic relationship started him on this path to becoming this guy now.
Right. But so that's 4 years ago, 5 years ago. I mean, I don't think the guy followed politics before then.
I think
you can tell in what certainly about the major issue in foreign policy, stuff like that. He clearly has just learned about Palestine a year ago.
But
he doesn't.
He met Barack Obama personally. Like, he was cool with Obama in Obama's administration, and he's been a high-level contractor.
Exactly. Well,
on the inside forever.
Further proof that he's unsophisticated. I mean, he's not sophisticated. He's sophisticated about getting government contracts.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I don't think he'd be. I know he's not sophisticated about.
I think he's
brand new to it.
I think he's more. I mean, I think his actual experience in the field makes him more sophisticated than pretty much any commentator could be. I think he's unsophisticated in that he's not clear ideologically what he wants, but I think he's very obviously self-interested. And what he does fits in line with the gestalt of who his persona is. It's what you would imagine Steve Jobs to be if he were to be elevated to that level. It's like, okay, I see what these projects are. And it's just, he has an excuse now to be politicized on certain issues because he has this speech platform. The thing about him, you can criticize him all you want, but it's very, very unwise to ever bet against him succeeding.
Oh, well, clearly, I'm not betting against him. I'm just saying he's politically naive. That's all.
But
you talking about Musk or Trump?
Musk.
Yeah, no, obviously, don't bet against him. Although, I mean, clearly, he wouldn't be anywhere near what he is without government subsidies. Right? I mean, every one of it. Am I right? I don't know the numbers, but I believe that the lion's share of all of his major companies are government contracts of the revenue, or at least, yeah, right? Isn't it revenue? Or I mean, they also provide facilities. I think they give them and tax breaks and all this stuff, so we can build these mega plants, building Teslas and stuff, right?
Yeah.
I believe that's right. I mean, it's all of his fortune is built on government contracts.
Yeah.
He's Mr. Free Markets and Mr. Limited Government. Okay, let's limit that. Whichever agencies are paying you, Elon, to make cars and rocket ships and tunnels under Los Angeles, why don't we cut that? By the way, has anyone proposed that to Elon Musk? Doge? Why doesn't Doge cut the very agencies that have given him these contracts? Why should we be subsidizing particular businesses? And that's his point. That's what he says. The government shouldn't be subsidizing businesses, I think. Maybe he hasn't said this. But like waste and efficiency, I mean, is this the most efficient way to build a good transportation system? Is to give billions of dollars to this South African dude to build rocket ships and electric cars that only people in San Francisco can drive? And a tunnel system under Los Angeles. This is the Boring Company that has, to this day, he's been doing it for 15 years. Nothing's come of it. There's just a bunch of holes underneath the LA airport. Starlink's cool. Have you ever used it? I've never used it. Apparently, like the Ukrainian armies used it, but normal people haven't used it. Was that the most efficient way to build a good transportation and communication system? Oh, and then letting him buy Twitter. Not that he should have been stopped, but I mean, this is again, he wouldn't have had the money to buy Twitter. All these massive government contracts that we paid for through tax money. Was that the best way to create a better transportation and communication system in the United States? What? And also his contracts with the CCP with China, which again, I'm all for, fine. But America first, where? And then, of course, Israel, I'm in love with you and I'll do anything for you. But I'm America first. None of it makes sense. And it's all basically fraudulent because he's not self-made in a sense. I mean, if like being good at getting government contracts makes you a good businessman, okay, I guess maybe that is a particular skill, I suppose, in a corporatist economy. Yeah, right. In a corporatist economy, which is inherently corrupt, and it was the basis of fascism. I mean, in Italy and Germany, the corporatist economy that we have right now, that was the basic fascist model of economics in those countries at the time. Yeah, then I guess the person like Elon Musk is the great hero, the guy who can win in that system. He can get the biggest government contracts. Great. I don't think it's like the greatest allocation of resources. And I think it also has bad and increasingly bad effects on, well, transportation and communications in this country. I mean, I don't think Elon Musk's contributions have been all that great. Yes, Twitter is somewhat of a freer space, but it's also, he cancels people all the time if he doesn't like what they say. There is no policy at all. And then also, all the liberals have left anyway and gotten a blue sky. So we just have all these like old right wingers who got kicked off now, and Elon rules the roost. No, I mean, this is not good. No, Not to mention the fact that he's autistic, as I've mentioned maybe 150 times, which again, binary thinking, unnuanced thinking. That's why all the logos of all of his companies are black and white, because that's how he thinks in black and white terms. Ask Elon Musk to explain love to you. Ask him to explain why a work of art makes you cry. You ain't getting it. Ask him to hire a bunch of Indian engineers to build rocket ships so we can colonize Mars. Oh, America first. Nothing says America first like colonizing Mars. We have some things to talk about, MAGA. Like, this is Steve Bannon's all over it, by the way. Steve's my guy. I mean, he's on this. He is totally with me on Elon Musk. But it's not just Elon Musk. There are contradictions within the Trump movement that are now coming to a head. I mean, already that's breaking apart because Vivek has been booted. That little coalition, or whatever that was, I'm not even sure what that was.
Well, Vivek is a scam. He's a scam artist, and he was exposed as such.
Is that why he got kicked out?
I think so. I think he overstayed his welcome, overplayed his hand, and his usefulness was.
I mean, no,
was
isn't it just like, isn't it sort of obvious and overdetermined? I mean, just before this happened, just think, everybody, Vivek Ramaswamy, that guy, that personality, that energy, and Elon Musk, that guy, that personality, that energy, running something as equals? No, they've been dictators in their companies their whole lives, and they are. Of course, it was going to fall apart. So that was dumb management on Trump's part. He should have given it to the Cato Institute. I mean it, or the Mises Institute. Let's go. I mean, give it to Ron Paul. No, I'm kidding. I'm not kidding. That's who really understands this stuff too.
No,
cutting government inefficiency.
Yeah,
which is massive. Anyway,
but all those people are on Twitter. All those people are a click away from Elon Musk. Like, communication works like that now, and we've seen these conversations between legit libertarians and him. We've seen him like share Ron Paul clips. We've seen him talk directly with Ron Paul. It's not hard to do anymore. I think our ideas are getting out there, and
Jeffrey Sachs.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, right. I mean, MAGA has now been in the last month. Either Trump or major MAGA people, right, have tweeted or retweeted or quoted Jeffrey Sachs, probably Noam Chomsky at some point, or at least they paraphrased Noam Chomsky, and a whole host of major libertarians for sure, and maybe even Curtis Yarvin. I don't know, but it's as I said, the theme tonight is, what do you call this? The intellectual diversity of the Trump movement.
Mm-hmm.
Which I love about it. I mean, I think that just in itself is a great thing. It's just fascinating. And that's one of the reasons the next 4 years are going to be really interesting to watch, to see how this newest, uneasy, unlikely coalition, how long it'll last, how it will break apart, because it's inevitably going to break apart. And I don't mean that Trump will, end up with no support at all. There will still be a movement, but again, there's a coalition he's cobbled together, or that's come together actually, that I think as these people find out who each other are, they will not want to be a part of it anymore. Which is like, that's what, anyway. Yeah, so anyway, but really interesting. Tulsi Gabbard, like, what are her politics? I don't even know. I've never trusted her. There's always been something, even when she was saying stuff I agreed with on Syria, and she was the only politician who was saying the right things on Syria. Even then, I actually didn't trust her, and I sort of think she might even be in the bag, or was in the bag, or something. She has the strangest ideology. I'm not even sure it is an ideology. The strangest politics I've ever seen in American politics, and that she ends up as the DNI, potentially Director of National Intelligence, is just. I mean, it doesn't scare me, but I just think it's just bizarre, and I don't know how we got there.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't. She's been really excellent on certain parts of U.S. foreign policy. I think Ukraine, right, and then
Ukrainian
Syria,
biolabs in particular. She's
right,
been,
right. Thank you. Right, exactly. It was amazing. Like stuff that's like really, and also, but like this is why it's so odd because she's so edgy there. That stuff, like the biolabs in bioweapons labs in Ukraine, that was stuff that only like a handful of us were talking about then. And she goes after it in Congress on Syria. Again, only like the gray zone saying what she was saying about Syria at the time. But then now she's like all in Zionist, go Israel, kill the Gazans and kill Arabs. I mean, she's all about Islamism now. Islamism. And terrorism. It's back in the news and we got to kill it again. Kill the people. And then, I mean, and again, I don't really care about this, but her father, I guess, was the leader of some sort of, was he a politician, but of Indian, I think an upper caste thing. It's some strange Indian transplanted to Hawaii, I think Hindu, like reactionary politics, like super anti-gay. I think like militantly anti-gay. And so she has that. So if you look at her,
Democrats just used. I mean, maybe, but she was. I mean, militantly, but like, Obama used to be anti-gay marriage, and she came in around 2012, 2013 against gay marriage. So it wasn't completely out of the scope.
I don't care.
Discourse when she came in. Yeah.
No, it doesn't bother me. I'm just saying, no, her father, though, I'm pretty sure was. I mean, he was or is like truly homophobic, like actually wants to deny rights to homosexuals, I think, that level. She was the only Democrat, really, the only prominent Democrat who was anti-LGBTQ stuff. Right. And so it's just odd. It's just really weird. But clearly it's from her lineage. But then where's this like anti-war, like hardcore anti-war over here and like super pro-war over there? It makes no sense. And she also did a stint in what, the army? She was in the army? Like it's very odd. But just the way she talks, it just seems very, very rehearsed, almost machine-like, robotic. I've always felt that she was speaking in a robotic way, which tells me it's rehearsed and not authentic.
She's from the military. You know, people are trained to be clear and obey and have a certain poise about them. Yeah. But I think her ideology is pretty clear. She's against wars that are with Al-Qaeda, that are arming these quote-unquote moderate rebels, that are arming the enemies of the past. But she still wants to fight the people who are responsible for 9/11. And she still sees radical Islam as a bad thing, like as a threat to the West. So it explains that level of it. Real quick, we got a super chat. Posmo.
Again, saying, Posmo, the man or woman, I don't know who you are.
Yeah, with the kitty cat.
It's a good point, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
No, it's a good point. Right. So the appointment of RFK to be HHS director is absolutely an indication or example of the COVID coalition actually hanging together. You're right. I mean, I didn't mean to say that it fell apart entirely. Of course, there are still people who, I mean, I'm now thinking of a friend of mine was like, we got to know each other as around COVID stuff, and now we're around Palestine stuff, and it's not working, and it's like we're seeing these things fall apart. The COVID coalition still remains at least partly intact, but major wings of it are at war with each other too. So it's not going to sustain itself. Well, Jesus, there you go. RFK. I mean, do you really think, have you not seen MAGA's discussion around RFK in less than the last year? He came out last summer for late term abortions, saying they should be legal. And all of MAGA, I forgot this, or I missed it at the time. I think it was last summer. All of MAGA said, fuck this guy, get rid of him. This is disgusting. He's evil. And now they're going to war for him.
Well, he's had a change of heart in the hearing today about that. I got the clip
about abortion?
of him talking about abortion. Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
So he's being a politician then.
This is what he had to say.
are you going to handle Title
I'm
10?
going to support President Trump's policies on Title 10. I agree with President Trump that every abortion is a tragedy. I agree with him that we cannot be a moral nation if we have 1.2 million abortions a year. I agree with him that the states should control abortion. President Trump has told me that he wants to end late-term abortions, and he wants to protect conscious exemptions, and that he wants to end federal funding for abortions here or abroad. That's Title 10. I serve at the pleasure of the president. I'm going to implement his policies.
Thank you for that. President Biden, when he came in, immediately closed down.
I mean, you gotta lose respect for him just on this. He's also changed he's changed his line on a multiple issues too, right?
He has one policy. It totally makes sense to have one policy when you're running to be the president, and to have another policy when you're serving at the behest of another person's administration.
All right. I see him being a politician right now. And I saw him change his line on multiple things, on vaccines, and yeah, no, he's now says he's pro-vaccine. Like, no, you're not. You weren't. I mean,
yeah. He took the vaccine
that's
himself,
big.
but
to say that he's pro-vaccine, which is what he said, I'm like, no, you were the most famous anti-vax person in the world. And of course you were anti-vax. I mean, he's anti not just the COVID vax, he's anti, isn't he? Yes, he's said multiple times flatly, nothing, they're all bad, right?
Well, no, he's always
unnecessary or bad.
He's always seen anti-vax as an epithet, as a name that was called him whenever he was put in the media. But he's always maintained that vaccines have saved a lot of lives, that there is such a thing as a good vaccine. He is proud of the vaccine schedule that his uncle put in as president. And he's proud of that lineage. He's just wanting to sue pharmaceutical companies for not being accountable for what they put in vaccines. He's got very specific criticisms of vaccines, but he's still,
he's definitely modified his rhetoric on it.
I do think he's modified and backpedaled a little bit. Yeah,
a lot.
Bernie.
I mean, he also
on that.
The other thing I think he's reversed himself on, or he's denied it or something. But there's tape of him. There's video. This is about 10 years ago. Remember, he was a big climate activist just recently, before COVID. That's what he was mostly doing, was climate stuff.
Environment or climate?
Both, but he was a real big climate guy. And this claim to fame on that is during, I think it was Earth Day, like maybe 10 years ago, something like that. He was doing an interview on TV, and he said that all of the heads of the oil companies should be put in prison. Yeah. I mean, you guys can look it up. I think it was on Reason TV.
Well,
but, and so and he sort of was denied that or something, but I'm not begrudging his 37 women a year. That's fine. I don't mind that. You know about the sex diary?
Yeah, the thing that drove his ex-wife to suicide. I'm sorry.
Oh, I know that happened, but
yeah.
No, I mean, power to you, brother, on that. But no, I think on this multiple. I mean,
it's very sad. Very sad and creepy. That's all.
He was a Democrat, but in his bones, clearly, not just because he's a Kennedy, because that was his worldview just a minute ago. So that means abortion, and that means ludicrous climate change stuff, which includes, in his case, the most authoritarian climate change stuff. That's not Trump. That's not MAGA. They're gonna not be cool with this guy unless he neuters himself and makes him not himself while being HHS director, which is possible. Maybe that's what he's just intending to do. He'll just be like a one-issue guy.
Yeah, I think he's pretty explicit about that. Yeah.
All right.
Especially if you see his opening statement, he said, "I prayed before God every day of like the last 10 years that He would put me in a position to end child chronic disease, and that is why I'm here, and that's what I want to do at HHS." And I think he's doing the adult thing and making some compromises and realizing that he's not president anymore, and that he's leveraged himself to have power and be as effective as possible on the one thing he cares the most about.
I mean, didn't HHS give money to Planned Parenthood? I believe. I think that was stopped, but they did, didn't they?
I think by executive order, Trump has stopped it, but yeah, it was happening probably. I'm not sure if it was HHS directly, but yeah.
Well, so I mean, like, if you really believe that not only should abortion be legal, but that late-term abortion should be legal, that means you're really all in on that. Person like that should be saying, as HHS director, oh, we should be funding abortions. And he shouldn't be silent about it. He should challenge the boss. What's Bobby Kennedy really about? I don't know, actually. I think he's not the most principled dude after all, turns out. Am I wrong?
I think he's seen the language on abortion. I mean, it's complicated, but I think most Democrats used to say every abortion is a tragedy. I think that was mainstream until 2015.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And I think they would all agree that it should be safe, legal, and rare. And oftentimes Democrats try to tell you that late-term abortions don't even exist. Even to this day, they tell you that's not even a practice. Yes, abortion should be legal up until the second of birth, but nobody ever has late-term abortions, and anybody talking about late-term abortions is fear-mongering. So, again, I think it's one thing to say it should be theoretically legal and protected if I'm president, but to say my boss is against it, and so I'm going to obey my boss is something else that I think, shows discipline, which got him in the position that he's in.
We'll see. I mean, I'm saying is he's going to have to not say any of those things while he's HHS director, or else he's going to have to leave too. The coalition will fall apart.
On the environmental tip, I think Trump is a very unique figure to where people want to fall in line with him and want to glom onto his power and want to be in his good graces as much as possible. And that for his sake and for the sake of the entire popular support behind him as this once in a lifetime opportunity to get political power. But on the environmental tip, Trump was saying all throughout the campaign that he's like, I love this Bobby Kennedy guy. I love what he says about disease, but we're going to have to reel him in on that liquid gold stuff, keep him off the environment. He would just say this with him in the room, and it was pretty clear. Don't touch that liquid gold, Bobby, but anything else, do whatever the hell you want to do.
No, I mean, I respect that for Trump. I do.
Yeah.
I admire that. That's pretty powerful. I mean, the guy wields power pretty effectively. And yeah, you see it. I mean, there is a cult of personality, but it's more just like deference out of fear, maybe. It's true. Like that part of the left TDS is actually true. There's a little bit of a cult of personality. I'm not worried about it. I don't think it's Mussolini, but I see a lot of undue deference to him, and excessive deference to him. And this is a case in point where you're just like expected to not speak about most of your political beliefs to please Trump. Anyway, but it's working. We'll see how long it works.
But you're talking about all these coalitions. You got the COVID coalition. You've got the Palestine coalition.
Anti-woke coalition.
The anti-woke coalition. The anti-woke coalition. Again, all these coalitions, I mean, they had their heyday and their moment of vocal heights. But as far as political effectiveness, they've all coalesced under the Trump administration in a pretty effective, broader coalition.
Right.
Yeah.
Not Palestine.
I mean,
we got what we wanted.
Yeah.
From the president. Yes, true. Well, some of what we wanted, but yeah. But no, I mean, that is a good point that the anti-woke, anti-COVID or COVID coalition.
And there's anti-war more broadly.
Anti-war.
Yeah.
Ish less, but yeah, it's in there. Yeah. I mean, you
got somebody actively. Yeah.
You see a convergence of all of those. You do, to some extent, at least in the Trump administration, which is just wild. I mean, meaning that, guess what? The dissidents are in the White House. Everybody's been talking about the dissidents. Icarus Fest is when we talk about dissident intellectuals and comedians being at Icarus Fest. I mean, now we all know people, or at least, we're 1 degree separated or 2 degrees separated from people literally in the White House right now. who have actual, serious, massive governmental power. I mean, that's kind of crazy. And if not knowing them personally, like they share at least some of the beliefs of those of us in the dissident sphere over here. Yeah. So what else about, what is it now? How many weeks? How many
Week 2.
days?
We're on week 2, day 10.
We're only week 2. I was about to say, like, has it been a month? Like, it's been so much.
Right?
What's your favorite that we haven't talked about? What's your greatest hits?
We'll get
A
to
lot.
that, but we got another super chat. Posmo is back, calling you names, but at least he's attaching
man.
$10 to it. Thank you. He's saying you're being a libertarian and a contrarian. That these are some of the best appointments in history. Why are you criticizing this? Everybody needs to lie to get confirmed.
Okay. I mean, do I prefer RFK's nomination over every other nominee for HHS? Of course. Like, just only because it's stirring shit. Interesting way, like in maybe a productive way. We're just learning things. It's similar. It's just the Trump effect, you know.
Well,
which is he comes in and he has none of the required beliefs, and he asks the wrong questions and he says the wrong things and he reveals the secrets, you know, because he doesn't care, because he's not a part of the club. Same with RFK in a way. But he was very good on COVID. I wouldn't say he was great, because I do think there was parts of his book and parts of what he said that were just wrong. I don't care. I'm not mad at I just don't care. But like, I don't think he was great. I think there were many other people, like the people I had on my show, for instance, who were right about basically everything, like from the lockdowns to the masks to all of it, to the vaccines, all of it. I had multiple people on my show, and I stand by, I think, every single thing they said to this day. Kennedy messed up a lot of stuff, even though he was very right about a lot of stuff too. So I don't know. He's also just a Kennedy. Maybe it's that. I see the Kennedys as a race of people, and I'm a racist. Maybe that's the problem. I'm just allergic to the Kennedys.
I would ask you to extend. Well, I mean, yeah, I think the Kennedy family has done a lot of harm to their race and their representation. I think,
to themselves, yes, if that's what you mean.
Themselves.
Yeah, a bunch of alcoholics. Yeah,
I think that they are a cursed bloodline. If you ever look into generational curses, it's pretty obvious that the Kennedys are that. But you know, maybe RFK Jr. is breaking it, and he is going against all of the rest of his family, who are still Democratic stalwarts in doing what he's doing. And it was very heartening to see his wife stand behind him after they tried to ruin their relationship, and after they went back and forth about supporting Trump. So
cursed bloodline. Hard to deny that. I mean, but like, so I worked on Capitol Hill really briefly in the late 80s when Teddy Kennedy was still in Senate. Yeah, in the Senate. And I would see him all the time. When you work on the Hill, even if you're like a little intern like I was, you see all the senators all the time. And that guy had the biggest, reddest head I've ever seen. It was just this giant, like, oversized pumpkin on top of a business suit that was bright red all the time. It's amazing he lived as long as he did. I believe he was drinking all day long every day while he was in the Senate. I mean, it was wild. And that's, you know, and listen to RFK Jr. talk about the family. Like, everybody's been an alcoholic and a drug addict, apparently. You know, every one of them. Every time they talk about a family member, it's always that. Oh, my sister, my cousin, oh yeah, I had a terrible thing with this or that drug, or, you know, they drive off bridges. I was Teddy. I mean, but and then John, well, like, I don't know if he was drunk, but he flew his plane into the ocean off of Nantucket, was it? And it goes on. I mean, there's so many who have, I think, OD'd. It's interesting. Well, and of course, the big patriarch, Joseph, the father of John and Robert, was a bootlegger. You know, it's interesting. I don't know. I don't care enough about their personal lives, but to have ever studied that. But in terms of their politics and the policies that they're responsible for, John and Robert Kennedy are two of the biggest villains of the 20th century. There ain't no doubt about it. But that's for another time.
Mhm.
So, what's your favorite thing that Trump's done so far? Golden shower.
Golden.
Sorry.
Shoot. Well, I was gonna say you're talking about confirmations.
Wait, he
Wouldn't
was
you
literally
rather-
accused of doing a golden shower, wasn't he?
Who?
That was the
Trump.
Trump
That
was
was
literally accused of doing a
tape.
golden shower.
Yeah, that Putin had a tape of him at a hotel engaging in a
Golden
tape.
shower.
Golden
Getting peed
shower
on. Yeah,
with
yeah.
Russian hookers on a bet because the hotel that he was staying at used to be used by the Obamas, and he wanted to really stick it to those Obamas. Oh, I hate you, Obama. I'm gonna hire some hookers to pee on the bed you slept in.
We're talking about the Steele dossier here.
Yep.
Did you ever read it?
I mean, a couple times, yeah, but
I'll never forget when I actually read. I was like, I need to just look at this thing, and I opened it up, and it's first of all, it's really short. It's like I forget, but it's just like a page or two or something like that. I mean, everyone should go look it up and go read it. It's like I was reading, I was saying, this is actually what this whole political movement is based around. It was written like by to me, like a middle schooler. It is so idiotic, and even just the language, the prose, the writing, and then these claims, these descriptions of like prostitutes pissing on Donald Trump's face was like, this is so obviously fake
yeah.
that I can't. It's just the whole Russiagate thing. Anyway,
And all of Capitol Hill for 3 years talked about the sanctity of our intelligence agencies and how Mueller's going to dig something up, and it handicapped his entire first administration.
he hasn't gone after Russiagate yet, has he?
No, because
Wow.
yeah,
He's going to.
No.
I assume he's going to wipe it out, and that's going to be wonderful.
Yeah.
That alone will be just so satisfying for all of us who saw it
Mhm.
for what it was from the beginning. From
Yeah.
day one, I said this is a fraud and a hoax, and it was so obvious. But the entire media class and even pretty smart people that I know fell for it. And like every single night for 3 years, Rachel Maddow and all of them just said, "Da, da, 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 da." And it was obvious. Every single bit of it was a fraud and a hoax. And so, and it's been burning that we haven't had a real reckoning about that. We need to correct the record on that, like truly and formally. Because the problem is it leads to war. The whole problem with the Russiagate thing, it wasn't that it damaged Donald Trump. I mean, I guess that was unfair to him. You know, that's not cool. But the whole real problem was that it moved us closer and closer to war. It was really forcing Putin to go to war, actually, because that was cutting off diplomatic relations with Putin. Because that was, oh, we can't talk to him. He's stealing our elections. He's influencing American politics. He's taking over the country. Jesus, I have like professors of political science actually telling me that they believe that Putin had taken over the National Rifle Association. I mean, because the New York Times said so. I'm like, wait, this is like fantasy level shit. No, we need to have a national formal reckoning, and we need to formally correct the record on Russiagate and wipe it entirely out of the consciousness of people who still believe in it. It cannot appear in the textbooks, in the American history textbooks in the future, in any way other than a fraud and a hoax. It should. I mean, it is so obvious. It should only be described in that way, and I'm afraid it won't be until Trump does something about it, and I think he will. I hope so. I can't wait for that.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, you got all the preemptive pardons, so I guess his name will be cleared, but nobody will be held accountable for it.
Well, I don't care if Adam Schiff goes to prison. I just want him to be exposed. That's all. You know, he can do that. But and then another huge development. I assume Trump had something to do with this, since he's actually has good relations with the CIA now. This is huge, and people aren't talking about it enough. The CIA just announced that they believe that the COVID virus did originate in the Wuhan lab. Central Intelligence Agency saying this publicly this week. I have to think that Trump or someone around Trump had something to do with that. Again, talk about left-wing and libertarian causes coming to the fore. Only the most radical people that, you know, you and I have been talking about it for years, but have been talking about the Wuhan origins of COVID, which means that it was Fauci and the US government that basically is responsible for the COVID virus existing in the first place, which is just, why do I have to even, this is the greatest crime of all time. How many millions were that killed? I mean, and what happened to the economy, and what happened to our lives, and what happened to everyone in the whole world over trying to invent a bioweapon, and it accidentally leaks out of your lab that you partnered with the CCP on. I mean, again, I don't want anyone to go to prison at all. It just does no one any good for Fauci to go to prison. I want it to be exposed fully.
I don't think people will take it seriously until people are in jail for it. I don't think the consequences.
That might be right.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, yeah, you might be right. No, you're right. Okay, put his ass in jail. His 87-year-old, whatever he is.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't have that punitive. I don't have that punitive thing in me. I just don't feel that. I've never felt that.
I don't either. I mean, I used to be really angry about COVID and want people in jail for it, especially like walking every day and seeing a playground full of kids with masks on, just standing dead-eyed like zombies and not playing and not. Yeah. That made me want to strangle people and become, well, what you accused me of at the beginning of the show, let's say. But
oh yeah. I mean, the more you talk about it, the angrier I'm getting, actually. And now I'm like,
yeah,
let's behead them.
I know we've all shoved it into the back of our memories because we needed to keep living our lives. But let's be honest,
I never want to think about it again. It was the most unpleasant and in some ways uninteresting political issue I've ever dealt with in my whole life. It's really the only political issue I just didn't want to talk about. Like I just didn't want to have to be interested in. I just hated the whole thing. But it was, at roots, a massive crime against humanity committed by the United States government. I mean, a multi-dimensional crime against humanity committed by two governments, of course, the United States government and the government of China. And I mean, this should be like on a level of World War II or more. I mean, more people died, right? I don't know. It changed the world almost as significantly as World War II, maybe more in some ways. I mean, imagine if there were just two actors responsible for all the death and mayhem of World War II. Would we want to do something to them? And would we want to? I mean, it should be treated this way. How is it not? It's wild to me. We're still dealing with the effects of it. I think it did massive damage to our kids.
Yeah.
To my kids.
Yeah.
To people under 20, It was horrendous and did real damage to their lives. And I do think affected their sort of social development in certain ways. People are indoors even more now.
Yeah.
It's a really indoor world we live in now, I've noticed. I just don't see people outside. You see people are on their phones all the time, and young people are always on their phones. And I think, of course, that was already happening, but it most certainly accelerated with COVID. People, I saw it in the business. Like people were like watching our videos and taking our courses more because they were at home all the time. And yeah. Anyway, Fauci and all the COVIDians. It's coming. It's coming. Something's coming bad for you. Again, I'm really not punitive. I have no lust for this at all. I'd rather they not go to prison, actually. But I also don't see what else should happen. I mean, you're right.
If the people who are responsible for this aren't punished, then it will happen again. I just have that feeling.
Well, the thing is, it's hardly just Fauci. It's like entire wings of the federal government.
Yeah.
I mean, I believe DOD was in it too, Department of Defense, I think, but the entire NIH is responsible.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole leadership of the NIH would not. Collins, the head of it, who resigned right before Biden left, I think, or whatever.
Or we need like a Desmond Tutu figure to work for the Trump administration and get everybody to confess and have amnesty, but have it all be completely transparent. That'd be the best case scenario.
There you go,
Yeah.
Christian. Yeah, man. I like that. Bishop Tutu, a Christian man. No, that's exactly. See, I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
No, I really do mean that. That would be perfect.
That's the only way.
Truth and Reconciliation Commission
Mm-hmm.
around COVID. Oh,
yeah.
Federal, and I mean, and it's really, I don't even want to mess with like the private citizens, like the scientists who contributed to this stuff. I mean, maybe. I mean, they need to be exposed. I mean, there was lies told by scientists, by leading scientists, from the beginning about Wuhan, and though those who worked for the government need to be before the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, but those are private citizens. I don't know. They need to be exposed 100%. Which, I don't even want to shame them, but would be the punishment, would be the shame, the reputational hit.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I should be more merciless toward them, but I'm just not that guy.
Yeah.
But so good stuff though, man. That's incredible. CIA announcing it came from Wuhan. They didn't connect the dots though. They didn't say this is therefore a government project.
Mm-hmm.
U.S. government project, but it's amazing. There's some stuff. It's been a hell of a week, no doubt.
Something you would get, your account taken down for if you said it in the middle of things. And now it's on record. That's the truth.
Well, remember how we used to get crushed by YouTube all the time for it?
Yeah.
Just mentioning COVID,
mm-hmm.
and they demonetize us or throw us off entirely, and they wouldn't. They had several like repeat guests that we had like banned. If like Jeffrey Tucker, just his name showed up on my show, we would get kicked off YouTube. It was just unreal.
Yeah. I wanted to ask. I want to note real quick. You also have Jay Bhattacharya coming up for NIH to be confirmed.
Speaking of the COVID coalition, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Rewarding if Trump is not allowed to punish his enemies, at least he's rewarding his friends. But also, isn't Hegseth being confirmed 5150 way better? So much progress from Lloyd Austin being confirmed 98.2 or 92.8, right?
Yeah, but they voted against him for all the wrong reasons, though.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think did a single Democrat ask him a question about foreign policy. I mean, or like challenge him on foreign policy. No, it was all about the women and the drinking.
Mm-hmm.
My God, Democrats.
Yeah.
Did anybody? I don't think anybody's challenged him on like what he thinks about Ukraine or
the Iraq War, for example,
or the Iraq War or Iran, or I mean, you name it. Like, what's your position on the Vietnam War, Pete? Was that a good idea or not? How about the Iraq War? Oh, you did like that. No, in fact, you fought in it. That's right. Did you volunteer? Oh, you sure did. You volunteered for special combat, didn't you? Because you really wanted to shoot people in that war. Was that war good war, worth it? But you really wanted to shoot people in it. And you did, apparently, didn't he? I think he actually killed somebody. You did. And so, wow. I mean, and then you find out later that the whole thing was based on a lie and totally unnecessary. I mean, isn't that like cause for remorse and maybe stepping away from policy decisions having to do with war? No, it's like, I'm proud of being an Iraq War veteran. I put that out there. That's what he's run on. We've all seen the pictures of him in his uniform with a rifle in the desert, proudly serving in a murderous, unnecessary war. I mean, but that's the reason you're the defense secretary now? That should be the reason you should never be anywhere near the Defense Department.
Yeah.
He did get a woman to leave her husband and her kids at a hotel room to go fuck him down the hallway.
Yeah.
And for that, I will be forever in admiration. Okay. But defense secretary, I'm not into it. Jay Bhattacharya, I'm going to say more bad things, actually. And I feel a little bad about this because I feel like Jay Bhattacharya is like that much removed from like who I am. I mean, he's just a professor, basically, who's got thrust into politics. I like the cut of his jib. I think he has sort of decent instincts, but I actually don't think he's that talented and that strong of a personality. I think he's going to get railroaded, steamrolled, whatever you call it. He just won't be that effective, I think, at the NIH. I can't imagine such a giant bureaucracy. That building, I think it's in Bethesda, the main building. It is just massive. It just gives you a sense of how huge it is, how many people work there. The entrenched bureaucracy, the deep state at the NIH must be incredibly powerful. And I just don't see little J. Again, a good guy. He just shouldn't be in politics. He should be at Stanford doing his research. I don't think he's going to get anything done. And in fact, it might even backfire. I see him as pretty weak as a personality, and I just don't see it. Yeah, I can't imagine. So I think that was a bad move on Trump's part. He should have brought in someone with much more weight, gravitas. But we'll see. I think he's going to leave. My guess is he won't make it for 4 years. I'll make that prediction. I don't think Jay Bhattacharya will be there 4 years from now.
Yeah, in general, it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see how these outsiders actually do their jobs. You know, it's one thing to pick the most provocative person to do the job, but it'll be interesting to see how long they last. Yeah.
I mean, and again, so it's either they're going to have to change their worldview or change their politics. Like Kash Patel, are you still going to say things about the FBI that you were saying before? Like that it needs to be abolished, basically, or radically reformed. I mean, is the FBI really ready to be radically reformed? My guess with Kash Patel is that he's just going to moderate entirely, and they're going to sort of end up coming together. MAGA and the FBI. I guess I don't know. It's hard to see or tell how liberal the FBI agents are. Apparently, they're very liberal and very Democrat, which is why they basically led the whole Russiagate thing.
Yeah, well, that's top brass, but I think there's still rank and file that are just cops, that are just high aspirational cops.
I mean, that's what I would have assumed. That they're sort of and cops are almost always sort of regular Republicans, like establishment Republicans, or MAGA for sure. But no, I mean, there were a lot of them, like the guy Strzok or whatever his name was, and the woman he was stooping. They were hardcore blue wave people, and that's why they started Russiagate. So I don't know what's going on there, but I just don't think that's going to amount to much. I think the FBI is going to look about the same 4 years. They just won't go after Trump. Will they go after a political dissident again? Sure, don't you think? They won't go after Trump. So that's, I suppose, good, but I think that's all we're going to get from Kash Patel. Kennedy, again, if I don't know if he's going to make it. I guess he will, but if he does, as I've been saying, he's going to have to completely change his worldview, at least publicly, and be ineffectual on all those issues that he's fought for and cared about his whole life. Can he do that for 4 years? I don't know. And what is he going to accomplish? Are we going to eliminate vaccines? I'm not even sure what he's going to do as HHS director. They're not that powerful. I mean, I can't think of major policies. I mean, there's been some that come from HHS, but so I don't know. It's a mixed bag. I don't love the appointments.
Let me knock this out real quick. We got some New Zealand money coming in, $5 of New Zealand money from Dubnet. How high up Oder ya think dismantling old structures inside agencies sit? The standard rotation is pretty dank.
Is this Maori language? I don't speak it.
I know. This is
how high
some weird patois. This is
man.
Yeah, New Zealand pidgin.
Are you pounding your chest while you're saying this? The standard rotation is pretty dank. Whatever that means, I agree with it. Well, let's say this. I think what I just did was answer your question. I think that's what I just sorry. But keep asking questions and doing super chats. That's good. That's helpful. And I'll try to answer the next one, I promise.
I think what he's asking is how high up is the corruption inside these agencies, and how hard it would be to
how high up does the odor stank?
Yeah,
because it's dank. in there. How high up? Where are we talking? The deep state?
Well, like Peter Strzok, for
The
example.
administration?
Yeah. Like,
Oh, the FBI?
yeah, maybe.
I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
the deep state needs to be. There needs to be a lot more research done on the deep state. We need to have a much clearer picture. What do we actually mean? Who are we talking about? Who are the politically motivated employees of the federal government at high levels? That's who we're talking about, right? People who have high level positions as employees of the federal government, staff for the federal government, who are politically motivated in their jobs, right? That they're ideologically motivated. They make decisions in their jobs that come from a political place. I don't know exactly. I just know that they're there. I know that there's a lot of them, and in particular agency, they're really powerful.
Yeah. I put it in the description, so I think we should talk about it because people get mad. And it is, I think, the biggest story of the week. Did you look into DeepSeek at all and what happened with them, the AI company? I just think it.
He's clarifying.
Yeah.
He says, sorry, how high on the to-do list is dismantling the old agencies? Again, for me or for Trump? I don't know. I mean, I need more clarification, sorry. But it's high. It's certainly high on the list for me and for Trump. Of course, I want to dismantle all of them. Is there a federal agency we really need? Name a federal agency we really need. We don't need the FBI. We never did. Remember, we have law enforcement in the state and local level. We have plenty of cops in this country. We have 1 million cops in this country. I think we're fine without the FBI. CIA? No, we don't need a private army for the president. No, we can conduct intelligence without doing what the CIA does. EPA, we all know that's bullshit. FCC, do you want them still regulating communications in this country? I thought we had a First Amendment. And don't we like free speech? Why is there a FCC? It's really hard to find. Department of Education, don't get me started. I mean, clearly that's got to go. What's R?
R, is that rubles? Are we finally getting that Russian money that we were promised?
It's about time, Vlad.
Yeah.
Where you been, bro? You promised me at the beginning of Russiagate that you would pay me a monthly stipend if I said the things I've said. I did my part. Even tonight, Vlad, I towed the line. I towed the Kremlin line. Where's my money at? All right, they openly disobeyed Trump last time and bragged about it to the media. Do you think they'll still do that but not brag about it? Meaning his own people?
Brazil.
His cabinet?
We got another Leonardo. This is Brazil.
Oh, that's Leandro.
Brazil money.
Is that R? Leandro?
Leandro.
Maybe he looks different here.
Yeah. I don't know.
There's a Leandro who's a member who shows up at the after show. And maybe okay. Sorry, Leandro. I think that's you.
Oh yeah, that's yeah. What's up?
Gotcha. Yeah, you're awesome. Sorry, man. You're awesome. You mean the cabinet? No, he picked loyalists. I don't know if that maybe you haven't seen that just from being in Brazil. You can't catch that part of the news, but it's been very clear that he has picked people who have been the most loyal to Trump through the last 5 years. That pretty much right every single appointment. That's really their principal characteristic, is that they have been longtime loyalists to Trump. So it's, or they are in a clearly inferior and subordinate position, like Marco Rubio, who, he has no power to disobey Trump, because he's got no one around him. He's all alone. I mean, there is no anti-Trump faction within the cabinet and the administration, like there was. I mean, it was Jesus. So it was like 2/3 of the people who worked for him in the first administration were anti-Trump, something like that. I mean, more than half, literally. Certainly in defense and state and CIA and the FBI. I mean, my gosh, they were all against him. So no, I think it looks like Trump's going to have that pretty disciplined. And I got to say, like the press secretary, she's 27 years old. She was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah. He knows how to pick them.
I mean, Corinne used to, every word out of her mouth, she read off of a card.
Yeah.
She couldn't say a word, nothing, without reading it. It was so hard to watch. And I watched many of her press conferences, and I'm not kidding. And every single word she would read. This woman stood up and was totally, by the way, completely astute on every single issue.
Yeah.
She had every single fact ready to go, and she had no notes whatsoever that she was reading from. And she addressed question after question, and it was pretty impressive.
Yeah. I mean,
and also they announced, and then they also, here's a cool thing. I don't know if you saw this, but they announced that they are allowing podcasters, alternative media.
I know I need to get my press credentials.
The White House press room for those conferences. They said that, and they announced it, and there's even a website and we can go like apply. So we can go and ask questions. Maybe.
Which would be probably the best development period on Capitol Hill that has ever happened. It's
incredible. And she actually made a point.
Legacy media.
She actually made a point to call on them during this press conference. She actually made a point to call on some podcasters. It was wild. And alt media people. Yeah. I'm like, you're right. That might be the most radical thing that's happening. When I didn't even know he was going to do that. And it's so perfect. It makes such sense. And it's so subversive in the best way. I mean, alternative media on Capitol Hill, nowhere. We've never seen that. In no way has alternative media ever penetrated the Capitol building or the White House or any of those buildings. It's never had any kind of say in or around the federal government. None, zero, not even state governments. And now it's right inside the door, literally. Okay, you want to talk about DeepSeek and the Chinese communists trying to take over our minds?
Yeah, if that's what's going on.
No, they're not. I'm joking. We do not need to go to war with China. We should never go to war with China. We should just trade with China. I was making a joke. This is where Trump is an idiot, I think, largely an idiot. Although I'd say MAGA is worse. He's actually less bellicose about China than MAGA is. I mean, a lot of MAGA, like intellectuals, if we can call them that, are calling for war with China. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Gordon Chang, who's at the Hoover Institution at Stanford, he's been like the top China intellectual in the MAGA camp. He's all about war with China. What's his name? Ellsworth Toohey? No.
That's the villain from The Fountainhead.
Right. No, it's named just like that though. It's weird. It's a funny like English aristocratic name like that. Anyway, it's Trump's #1 China advisor. He's an academic too. I mean, pretty much calling for war with China. So anyway, so the CCP funded, I assume, company founded this AI machine that they did for a fraction of the money. It cost them a fraction of what ChatGPT cost to get up and running. And is it even more powerful?
I think it's comparable so far. I mean, it hasn't been tested so much yet, but it claims to match or surpass. Yeah, OpenAI's flagship products.
Yeah, and it was like for a fraction of the cost, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
like 1/10 or 1/100th. Great. Why is this bad news? I mean, this is just good. Competition is always good, I thought, guys. And why does America need to dominate in AI? Why do we need to dominate in anything? That's imperialist thinking, right? Think about that. Do you think the Swiss are always talking about we need to dominate the watch market? No, they just make good watches. The Americans have this thing where we need to be #1 and the best and to dominate. That's the word we use. Why? We would only think that and assume that if we lived in a global empire that has its mission, its core mission, the maintenance of that empire, the extension of that empire, the strengthening of that empire, the elimination of all threats to that empire, all rivals to that empire. The idea that we need to dominate in some industry, why? Why, as a country, do we need to dominate in any industry? I really don't get it. What's the point unless you have imperialist ambitions? So again, MAGA, you need to get straight on this. Like, is it America first or not? Why do we need to dominate? Meaning that we ship our products overseas to other countries? That's imperialism. It's a form of imperialism. It's a mixing with other countries. Like, what is that? And determining markets, making so that America controls markets for everyone. Why is that necessary for us to do? It might have some benefits, I suppose, but why is it necessary? That's an ideological thing. This idea that we must dominate this industry, I think. I mean, which it's an imperialist ideology. and they're not even aware that's what it is. No other country thinks this. I don't think. No one other country thinks we must dominate this industry. Do the Dutch say we must dominate the tulip industry? No, they just make good tulips and they sell them for a lot of money. And they get wealthy off of that. And they live well. I mean, it's just not very weird. What's your take?
I just dawned on me now that all the environmental bell ringing about AI needs to be stopped because it's going to cost all this energy is probably out the window now. And all the climate alarmism and all the, big scatters to build hydro plants and cooling plants and nuclear energy plants might be in vain. And we might just advance like we have with every other technology and made it more efficient. And we might not have anything to worry about on that front.
Yeah, I think I think with AI, it's all much ado about nothing, but much ado about nothing that we should worry about. I've seen still nothing that I worry about.
Oh,
I think we're not going to. It's never going to replace art. It cannot replace true creativity, right? Because only human minds can make something, can be truly creative, can create something new. AI takes the new creation and then remakes it, repackages it, but they can't. AI machines can't. Of course, I hope this is clear. Like they can't make a truly original work of art because everything in an AI machine comes from human minds. So we have to make the thing before the AI. Anyway, so I'm not worried about that. All it's gonna do is eliminate a lot of shit work. Like you and I have already used it a bunch, and it's super helpful. And it just eliminates, the need to do stupid rote writing and make little art here. Instead of hiring an artist, it can do it immediately, and all the rest of it. I mean, it's just that's all. There's just remember Elon Musk. We have to stop it because it's gonna lead to nuclear annihilation. AI is gonna decide to kill all human beings someday. Like, I mean, maybe he's right. But that's
Silicon Valley cult newsletter that he was a part of for a while, but and then the technology just came out regardless, and everybody had a mad dash to try to make money off of it. But yeah.
I just want them to perfect AI porn. That's all. I'm just waiting for that, and then I'll be happy with it. I mean, if you can make exactly what porn you want, wow, then I'm happy with it. God bless the CCP. Okay, ready to party?
Yeah. To me, there's nothing there is nothing worse than getting exactly what you want. To me, that sounds like hell. Yeah.
Yes. I see. No, it just gets boring.
Yeah.
So it's called being an American, by the way.
Yeah. And then
we have everything. It's so boring. We got to invent things to feel bad about.
One last super chat before we go. Posmo believes that the end game of this is tariffs, that he's being bellicose as a front.
Yep, true.
Sure.
Well, maybe true. Yeah, maybe true. Yeah. As I said, Trump's not as bad on the rhetoric about China as his advisors are.
Yeah.
His advisors are much scarier. I actually don't think Trump wants war with China. I don't.
Yeah.
I want to make that clear. I do think some of his advisors do. All right, we're going to go party.
Cool.
At the after show. Show the link. If you want to join us after every Unreported, Michael and I hang out at the after show for patrons only. Go to patreon.com/unregistered. Join at any level. Super cheap. Support the show anyway. And then you can come hang out with us. Or you can just come and watch. You don't have to show your face or show your name or anything. You can be completely anonymous and just watch. Whatever you want to do, but it's a blast. It's the best thing in my week. We've been doing it for years. It's a lot of fun. Michael, you're the best. Thank you again. Ted Kaczynski signing off.
It's Kashmir, so.
Oh, you're not Ted Kaczynski.
I'm not Ted Kaczynski anymore. Yeah.
Nice. You're bougie.
Yeah.
All right, brother. Thank you.
Right.
Peace.
Peace.